The haunting record of the Marshes. They locked 9 kids in silence beneath. The estate, the Louisiana marshlands, stretch endlessly beneath a perpetual veil of mist, where cypress trees emerge like ancient sentinels from waters that reflect nothing but gray skies. It's October 2024. An investigative journalist, Sarah Chen, navigates her rental car down a crumbling dirt road that seems to lead nowhere. The GPS lost signal miles ago, but the coordinates scrawled on a yellowed piece of paper guide her deeper into this forgotten corner of America. The Blackwood estate materializes through the fog like something from a nightmare. Once a grand antebellum mansion, it now stands as a monument to decay. Ivy consumes its walls, and broken shutters hang at odd angles like damaged wings. The wraparound porch sags under the weight of decades, its ornate columns cracked and stained, with moisture that never quite dries in this humid wilderness. Sarah's investigation began 3 months ago, with a single photograph found in the archives of the New Orleans Historical Society. 9 children, aged 6 to 14, posed formally in front of this very mansion. The photograph was dated 1987 and written on the back in fading ink, "The Blackwood Home for Lost Children, Final Portrait." What made this photograph extraordinary wasn't its age, but what came after. Every one of these children vanished without explanation within weeks of this picture being taken. Local records were mysteriously sparse. The Blackwood Home for Lost Children had operated for barely 2 years before closing abruptly. The official reports cited administrative complications, but Sarah's instincts, honed by 15 years of investigative work, detected something far more sinister. Foster care systems don't just lose 9 children simultaneously. Children don't simply disappear into mist and memory without someone, somewhere, asking questions. The estate's history stretched back to 1847, when tobacco magnate Cornelius Blackwood built it as a symbol of his wealth. The family prospered through the Civil War by selling supplies to both sides, a fact that earned them enemies on all fronts. By the 1920s, the last of the Blackwoods had died under mysterious circumstances, and the property changed hands repeatedly. It served as a private sanitarium in the 1940s, a retreat center in the 1960s, and finally, briefly, as a home for displaced children in the 1980s. Sarah parks beside a rusted gate that hangs open at an unnatural angle. The silence here is absolute. No birds sing, no insects buzz. Even the ever-present Louisiana wind seems to die at the property's borders. She retrieves her equipment, digital recorder, camera, metal detector, and a flashlight powerful enough to cut through the perpetual gloom that seems to cling to this place. The front door stands ajar, its brass handle green with patina. Sarah steps across the threshold and immediately feels the temperature drop by at least 10 degrees. The foyer stretches before her, its once elegant wallpaper peeling in long strips that flutter like dead skin. A grand staircase curves upward into darkness, its banister carved with cherubs whose faces have been worn smooth by time and moisture. Her footsteps echo strangely in the empty house, each sound seeming to multiply and distort as it bounces off the walls. In what was once the main parlor, children's furniture sits arranged in neat rows, small desks, tiny chairs, a chalkboard still bearing faded mathematical equations. Someone had tried to create a classroom here, but abandonment has transformed it into something unsettling. Sarah's metal detector begins clicking erratically as she explores the first floor. The strongest signals come from near the kitchen, where a heavy wooden door stands locked with a chain that appears far newer than anything else in the house. The door itself is different too, reinforced, soundproofed, with scratches around the handle that suggest desperate attempts to open it from the inside. Behind the kitchen, she discovers a narrow staircase leading downward. Unlike the grand staircase in the foyer, this one is utilitarian, built for service rather than show. The walls here are brick, and as Sarah descends, Her flashlight reveals that the bricks are scored with countless small marks, scratches. Really, as if made by fingernails. The basement reveals the estate's most horrifying secret. 9 small rooms line a narrow corridor, each barely larger than a closet. The doors are heavy steel, installed sometime in the 1980s based on their style. Each door has a small window at eye level, and a slot near the bottom that could only serve one purpose: to slide food through without opening the door. Inside each room, the walls tell a story of desperation. Children's handprints, made in what appears to be mud, or worse, cover every surface within reach. Names are scratched into the brick. Tommy, Lisa, Marcus, Sarah, the same names from the photograph upstairs. In one room, a calendar has been carved into the wall with painstaking detail, marked day by day until the marks suddenly stop on November 15th, 1987. But it's in the last room that Sarah makes her most significant discovery. Hidden behind a loose brick, she finds a small metal box, carefully wrapped in what was once a child's sweater. Inside the box, a microcassette recorder and 3 tapes, labeled in a child's careful handwriting: Day 1, Day 23, and Day 47. The recorder, miraculously, still functions. As Sarah inserts the first tape, her hands tremble not from cold, but from the weight of what she's about to hear. The static clears, and a young voice emerges from the darkness, a voice that has been waiting nearly 40 years to tell its story. My name is Michael Reeves, and I'm 11 years old. If anyone finds this, please know that we didn't run away. They brought us here and locked us up, and nobody's coming to save us. Today is the first day, and I'm going to keep recording until whatever happens, happens. The tape continues, and Sarah realizes she's listening to something extraordinary. The real-time documentation of 9 children's imprisonment and gradual disappearance. Michael's voice, initially strong and defiant, becomes the thread that will lead her through a labyrinth of corruption, conspiracy, and unimaginable cruelty. As the first tape plays, Sarah begins to understand that the Blackwood estate wasn't just a home for lost children. It was a place where children were deliberately lost, hidden from a world that had already forgotten they existed. The question that haunts her as Chapter 1 ends isn't just what happened to these 9 children, but who was responsible, and more chillingly, whether the same system that failed them continues to fail others today. The mist outside grows thicker as darkness falls, and somewhere in the depths of the estate, Sarah swears she can hear the faint echo of children's voices, calling out from the silence that has held them for decades. The second tape begins 3 weeks later, and Michael's voice has changed. The confident 11-year-old from the first recording now sounds older, wearier, touched by horrors that no child should ever witness. Day 23. Tommy stopped talking yesterday. He just sits in the corner and rocks back and forth. Lisa keeps crying for her mom, but quieter now, like she's afraid they'll hear her upstairs. Marcus tried to dig through the wall with a spoon he saved from dinner, but all he did was make his fingers bleed. I can hear him whimpering in the next room. As Sarah listens in the basement of the Blackwood estate, she pieces together the systematic torture that these children endured. The recordings reveal that the home was run by Dr. Edmund Voss, a former psychiatrist who had lost his license in New York for conducting unauthorized experiments on patients. With him was his assistant, a woman the children only knew as Nurse Catherine, whose cruelty seemed to exceed even Voss's cold calculations. The children had been specifically selected. All were wards of the state, with no family to ask questions, no advocates to notice their absence. Their official records had been altered to show they had been transferred to facilities in other states, creating a paper trail that led nowhere. In an era before digital databases and instant communication, it was disturbingly easy to make 9 children simply vanish from the system. Day 24. They made us watch today while they punished Jenny for trying to escape. Dr. Voss said it was a lesson in the consequences of disobedience. I can't write down what they did to her. I can't even think about it without wanting to throw up. Jenny's only 8 years old. The recordings reveal that Voss was conducting psychological experiments, studying the effects of isolation, fear, and controlled trauma on developing minds. The children were his laboratory rats, and the basement of the Blackwood estate was his laboratory. He documented everything meticulously, treating their suffering as data points in his twisted research. Sarah's investigation reveals that Voss had financial backing from a shadowy organization called the Human Development Research Foundation, which had connections to several government agencies. The experiments at Blackwood were part of a larger, more sinister program that sought to understand how to break and rebuild human psychology, knowledge that would later be applied in interrogation techniques and psychological warfare. Day 35. David died last night. At least, I think he died. They took him away this morning, and Nurse Catherine was humming while she mopped the floor where he'd been lying. She never hums unless something makes her happy. There are only 8 of us now. The second tape chronicles the gradual disappearance of the children, one by one. Some died from physical abuse, others from neglect and medical conditions that went untreated. A few simply vanished in the night, taken away by Voss and his associates, for reasons the surviving children could only imagine. Michael's final recording comes from the third tape, labeled Day 47. It's just me and Sarah left now. Sarah's not the one listening to this. She's Sarah Martinez. She's 9, and she hasn't spoken in a week. I think her mind went somewhere else, somewhere safe where they can't reach her. I hope so. I hope she's somewhere warm and bright, where her mama is waiting for her. I can hear them coming down the stairs. Dr. Voss and 2 men I've never seen before. They have a big black bag with them, the kind they used for the others. I know what that means. If someone finds these tapes, please remember our names. Tommy Chen, Lisa Washington, Marcus Johnson, Sarah Martinez, Jenny Phillips, David Rodriguez, Amanda Foster, Kevin Murphy, and me, Michael Reeves. We were real. We mattered. We weren't just experiments or case numbers. We were kids who wanted to go home. Tell the world what happened here. Don't let them say we just ran away or got lost in the system. We didn't run. We were murdered. And if you don't stop them, they'll do it again to other kids who don't have anybody to protect them. I can hear the key in the lock now. I'm going to hide this recorder in the wall where I found that loose brick. Maybe someday, someone will care enough to look for us. My name is Michael Reeves. I was 11 years old. Remember me. The tape ends with the sound of a heavy door opening, footsteps, and then silence. Sarah sits in the darkness of the basement, tears streaming down her face as she absorbs the full horror of what she's discovered. But her investigation is far from over. The tapes are evidence, but she needs more. She needs to find what happened to Voss, to expose the network that enabled this atrocity, and to ensure that the children's voices are finally heard. Her research over the following weeks reveals that Dr. Edmund Voss died in 1995, apparently of natural causes, in a comfortable retirement home in Florida. But the Human Development Research Foundation continued to exist, evolving and changing names over the decades. Its current incarnation operates several facilities across the country, including group homes and residential treatment centers for at-risk youth. The most chilling discovery comes when Sarah traces the ownership of the Blackwood estate itself. Despite being abandoned for decades, the property taxes have been paid consistently by a shell company. The same shell company that owns 3 other properties in different states. Properties that once housed similar facilities for lost children. As Sarah prepares to publish her investigation, she receives an anonymous phone call. The voice is elderly, female, with a slight southern accent. "You need to stop digging, Miss Chen. Some graves are better left undisturbed. Those children, they found peace. Don't take that away from them." But Sarah recognizes something in the voice, a cadence that matches the descriptions from Michael's tapes. Could it be Nurse Catherine, still alive, still protecting the secrets of the Blackwood estate? The story concludes as Sarah stands once more in the basement of the estate, now accompanied by FBI agents and forensic specialists. The 9 small rooms are being carefully documented, the walls photographed, the scratched names preserved for posterity. Ground-penetrating radar has located what appear to be unmarked graves in the estate's back garden, but as the team works, Sarah notices something that chills her more than anything she's discovered so far. In the dust on the floor of Michael's room, there are fresh footprints, small ones, child-sized, leading from the hiding place where she found the tapes to the door. The mist that eternally shrouds the Blackwood estate seems to move independently of any wind and in its swirling patterns. Sarah sometimes glimpses shapes that look almost like children playing in the garden they never lived to see. The voices in the recordings were just the beginning. The real haunting of the Blackwood estate isn't supernatural. It's the echo of injustice, the persistence of truth, and the reminder that somewhere in America today, there are other forgotten children whose voices haven't yet been heard. Michael Reeves kept his promise. He made sure they would be remembered. And through Sarah's investigation, their story will ensure that the system that failed them so catastrophically can never fail others in the same way again. The silence beneath. The estate has finally been broken, but the questions it raises about power, vulnerability, and society's obligation to protect its most defenseless members will echo long after the mist clears from the Louisiana marshlands. In memory of the 9 children of Blackwood Estate, Tommy Chen, Lisa Washington, Marcus Johnson, Sarah Martinez, Jenny Phillips, David Rodriguez, Amanda Foster, Kevin Murphy, and Michael Reeves. Their voices, preserved in time, remind us that some truths are too important to remain buried.
Thank you for watching another tale unfold here on NW Storytime. Every story hides a secret, and tonight you uncovered another one. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us keep the secrets alive. Until next time, stay curious,